So one piece of advice is definitely to be yourself. Fundamentally, don't be afraid of yourself. Because as soon as you're doing something because someone else said you should do it, it gets a little bit weird. Because then if people don't like it, they don't like it from a place of you not even being honest. If he had it in his studio, it's for a reason.
Yeah.
Because it's just odd. It's an odd thing, but it's so powerful.
There is a preset in there, isn't there?
There is. Number one, so beautiful, an old Fostex ribbon.
Oh, wow.
The GT5 is, in my opinion, a future classic.
Tom Waits or Massive Attack,
It's crazy,
but
yeah,
Tom Waits
yeah.
and Massive
I know,
Attack,
yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
how incredible.
I mean, yeah, it was like obviously a mad collaboration to even kind of like wind your head around.
Hi, welcome to episode 3 of the Gas Club. I'm here today in the studio of Ben Baptie, and we're going to talk about his work as a mix engineer, working with artists such as Massive Attack and Little Sims, and look at some of the amazing gear that he uses in his work. Hope you enjoy the show. Ben,
How you doing?
nice to see you.
Nice to see you too.
And it's nice to be here. This is the first time I've been in your, I say it's a new place, but
It's been about 6 years since I've moved in, yeah.
it's a familiar sight, some of this stuff.
Well, when we first met each other when I was, about 10 years
ago.
When
How long had you been back from, because you were in New York with Tom, weren't you, working at Electric Lady?
Yeah.
So that was... Did he fire you or did you...
left.
You left.
Purposely left. Then I stayed in New York for like a year or so more.
What, freelance in New York?
Freelancing there. So I mainly worked out of a studio there called Atomic Sound, which is in Red Hook in Brooklyn. Amazing Neve VR room at the time. And then I moved back and started working at a strong room, which is kind of pretty much straight away, as soon as I moved back was when we first kind of became acquainted, and I started buying loads of equipment from you.
Well, thank you.
That's all right. The first two was this Korg.
Oh, was that really one of the... I mean, so I've literally just found another one, and it's... I think I might have had one since that one.
Yeah.
And I have a feeling someone bought it because you told them about it.
They're a secret weapon for sure.
What do you use it on?
It's drums, always drums. But what it's great for is it's great for centering. So if you've got really big, nice, wide drums, this, because it's just spitting out a mono, you can really center stuff. And it's also just got a really lovely kind of harmonic richness to it, so you can just slam it and then parallel that in. So it's never just that.
I've been listening to some recordings I made years ago, probably about 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow, these sound... I love them, and I'm like, they're completely mono, and I realised they're actually... It's me with one of those, like an 808, a Space Echo, maybe a Hawk Echo, and it's all in mono.
Yeah.
And it sounds so good.
It's so, I mean, a lot of mixes aren't as mono heavy as they maybe should, as strong in the middle as they should be, because it's such a different style of, especially on the mixing, it's a completely different style of mixing. Where you put stuff out wide or where you place things in the middle, it's like a height thing that we don't really have anymore.
Yeah.
But not in a lot of like modern style mixing. But on the same order, I bought that.
So well, that must be one of the first Hawks we had then, because
that's a sacred Hawk to me.
There's a few of them here that are sort of almost like we've victims of our own. Yeah. Well, actually selling stuff to you because you tell people about them. But Hawks now, I'm finding it really hard to get Hawk spring reverbs.
Well, this has become like immensely vital in everything that I've done actually. So it's not just a mixing thing anymore. This is used whenever I track as well. It's become so distinct in the character that I can get from it. What's so nice is, especially with stuff like when I was doing like Sault and Clio Soul, those kind of drum sounds, stuff we did with Sims. That's all the
really?
All of that. So yeah, that's it's pretty. It's like a very big part of the drum sound. And it's not even the spring. It's not even the spring that we're using. It's just the dry.
Yeah.
But so
they've got an incredible drive distortion.
It's an amazing thing, and the way that I would do it is, and this is actually, this is technically incorrect what I was doing, but
I like
it would cause issues, but it would be, for me, it's a good. I like it in terms of a creative, like where it puts my mind. Is, say if I had coming into the console, 47, a 67, and like a mono overhead, whatever it might be, like a Coles. They would all be coming in console into tools, but then from tools I would have a send to that.
Yeah.
So obviously there's a latency that exists. So when you have that, you have to send all of those sends have to go pre to that. And you can't listen to the direct. You can only listen to the return of that or the mics. You can't listen to both at the same time because they start phasing. But what's amazing is in the kick and the snare mic, it starts behaving differently with those because there's a latency. And so what I would start doing is I would start with all of the, depending on what I was sending, I would start listening to all these, and their slight phase variations would sometimes end up being the absolute pinnacle of the drum sound. Because of this weird thing that I found with this. But anyway, most of the time that ends up being the drum sound. So between these two, unknowingly, that first Soundgas order is now become like central to all of the drum sounds. I think of like the last 10 years of mixing for me. It's pretty crazy.
I'm gobsmacked because firstly you've just mentioned Sault. I've got all. I think I've got all of them. It got to a point where it's getting difficult to keep buying all their records, but I'm a massive fan of the sound of those records.
And that was basically how we first met each other.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it was a good order.
It's that thing about serendipity and I bought both those things. I had no idea what they were when I bought them. The Hawk stuff was just a total.
Yeah.
Like I think the first thing I saw and got was one of the reel-to-reel echoes because obviously I thought, well, even if they don't sound any good, they're going to look good.
Yeah, they do look good.
And then I started seeing the springs. I was like, well, we'll give one a try. And I'd never seen one of those Korgs before. For it to end up on records that I love.
Yeah.
Well, that's kind of why I do this. Basically.
Yeah. And the great thing is the Hawk is a great name as well.
Yeah.
So it's very easy to be like, we're just using the Hawk on this. And everyone's like, oh, great, I accept that. I'm not going to say anything else. When I came in here, obviously, it's just kind of very much grown. And I've because when I first moved in here, it was just this underneath bit, and then this is all kind of been
slowly
built
on
top. And then, there's all the pedals over there, there's the tape machines. I mean, we definitely both have the same addiction and obsession. And so I've just been very, very careful in the way that I've bought things.
You've bought well.
Yeah,
I mean,
when
it's like when you JPJ's 1176s. I was so pleased when I saw that you bought those. And he was also really pleased. It's like, they're going somewhere. He wanted stuff to go where it's going to be used.
Yeah, as much as it looks like there's a lot here, this is all consistently getting used.
It actually doesn't look like a lot to me because you want to see. That's my
but like all of this stuff is consistent.
I mean, I know. I look at this and I go, you don't actually need to explain it to me because I can see there's purpose here.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing with all of this stuff is it's like, obviously I would love to have an RMX, be great, but that does all the things I want from the RMX. I've used the RMX enough. And that just has something slightly different to me. But what was great is I first used that with on a Rufus Wainwright record with Mark Ronson years ago. And that was when I first started working with Tom, and I always remembered these settings that Mark would use. And he was just like, just use it, and it was always just like, fuck, this sounds so good. And so I'm like, it'd be great to get an RMX, but I actually don't need to get an RMX.
No.
For me, it's not actually needed. This does everything I wanted. And obviously, when Andrew Weatherall was, selling, God rest that guy's soul, he's a king. But it's like, when all that stuff came up, I couldn't ignore that. It was just like, that's sacred.
It's a good job. I don't actually properly get my hands on everything that comes through.
Yeah.
I actually now have a rule where I don't allow myself to try things until they've sold because it just got it was too much. But I think if I'd known what that was, that might have stayed behind.
If he had it in his studio, it's for a reason.
Yeah.
Because it's just odd. It's an odd thing, but it's so powerful, and has really become like a centre of the studio now.
Fantastic! I mean,
it's
I know
great.
Ian, his brother, would be so happy. It was a big factor. We want these to go to people who are going to use them, and there is a preset in there, isn't there?
There is, let me actually show you. Number 1. I write on my equipment quite a lot because I'm not going to sell it. It's mine.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is kind of stupid, but also I'm just like, it's easier for me to. So for instance, on my H3000, I've got all of the
Your
presets.
favourite
My
presets.
presets I write on the front. But on this one, because I actually don't believe it's mine, I believe it's Andrew's, I put them on a bit of tape because I have too much respect for that man.
I
would
that.
never, ever, ever write on his equipment.
I'm very lucky I've got Nils Fram's white Juno that's still got all his tape with all his presets. And it kind of isn't as convenient as having my old Juno because I'm always like, I get to I try something, I think I'd like to save that. I'm like,
yeah, can't reset.
I can't use that.
No.
So it's more like having a Juno 6, which is fine.
Yeah.
It's a Juno 6, but it's got Nils's presets.
Yeah. But that's, and there's certain things that just are forever someone else's.
Yeah, you're just looking at it. It's like if you owned a guitar that belonged to some famous guitar player. It's, you wouldn't scratch your name in the back of it.
Hell no. Even though I feel like in a good place with this, obviously I'm still going to keep buying stuff, but it's like,
there will always be things.
There's always things, but what's nice is I'm getting to like, I feel like I've got the battleground is like set, and now I've got like my little divisions that I want to like focus on a bit more. So I recently got these.
Yeah, tell me about
these Quad 8s.
That was one of the first things that my eye was drawn to when we walked in, and I was like, oh yeah.
These Quad 8 filters are
passive, yeah.
Passive, but I've had a.
Oh, have you had them?
I've had a kind of step-up unit built by Margot over at Rack, and she did an amazing job on it. I mean, they sound unbelievable. Putting these over. Actually, for instance, like this Massive Attack tune that just came out that I worked on. We had a brass section on it. The brass section comes in like the second verse. I recorded it. Rosie Danvers did an amazing arrangement on it. We were all super happy. It sounded great. But it just kept getting in the way of Tom Waits' vocal, like no matter what I would do. And you literally just put these on it and just set them to 10. And it was just like, immediately, they just sat down, Tom vocal come forward. And instead of it being this whole fucking thing of back and forth, it's just like something just goes, get out of the way, and that comes through. But at no point do you lose any of like the richness of it. And, and obviously plugins, great, very useful, love them, cool. You can't put a filter plugin over brass section and put it to 10K and expect it to do anything apart from destroy the sound. Whereas this, there's something that's happening that's obviously very harmonic and musical for your ear. And so instead of it being like they get duller, they just push back.
I'm about 99% sure I know the answer because I'm looking at it. I use plugins basically because I'm not a mix engineer and I don't have a wall of this sort of stuff. So I do use plugins. I get so much flack when I talk about this online because you just want to sell vintage. I don't want to. I'm not. This is personal taste. There are lots of people who say, you can't tell the difference.
If you can't, then you're not listening. I think they both have like an amazing use.
Of course.
100% have an amazing use, and in a way, as the further and further I've got down the line, I just don't think they're comparable. I don't think they're the same thing. So just because someone's made a plugin of that doesn't mean that it's that. It means it's a different compressor. And like
it's a compressor.
It's a compressor. It's and it's doing that, but it's doing it in a way that there's nothing like that. Just like that's not doing the plugin. They're two different things. The UAD plugin of the LA2A, I love that. I love whatever it's doing. I don't know what it's doing because I can't see what it's doing. It's not like this where I can see what's going on. It's just like there's a bit of software doing something. I love what it does to the sound. So even though I have, for instance, like the lead vocal channel here is like a VR, an old new VR.
Is that what that is?
Yeah, these are old new VRs, just re-racked and recapped. So it's that into the Pool Tech, into 1176, into the Tube Tech, into the 1081, into the Fatso. Even though I've got that going on the lead
that's
vocal.
all then, yeah.
Even though I've just have a nice light chain on the lead vocal, there's a time where I'll still put the grey, LA2A UAD on it, and all of that, because that does something that none of that does. I think what a lot of people do is they focus very, very heavily on the individual part of it. So it's like, well, this 1176 and this, and that's their comparison. But I think it's when you're talking about all of it, to try and mix a song, is not just like just one compressor and against one compressor plugin. It's loads of things at work at the same time, because I use a mixture of the two. There's lots of plugins that I use, and I'm getting plugins from different producers, from different engineers, from something maybe I produce, whatever, and there's going to be loads of plugins on it from whatever's gone on pre me. And then I kind of will add this on top. Sometimes I'll get rid of the plugins, sometimes I'll keep them. The last thing I want to do is change someone's production. I've got to trust what they're doing and continue the path. But it's like, for me, it's gauging all of it as a piece of work. It's all a piece of art. And so when I look at like a photograph or I look at a painting, I'm not just going, well, the green's wrong. Fucking green's wrong, mate. Yeah. I'm looking at it going, how does this work within the whole context of it? And that's what I'm trying to gauge. The joy of all these things is there's not a manual for them in terms of what you're supposed to do to them. Yeah. How to use them, yeah, and you should understand how they function, the things that what it's doing, like the concepts behind it, of course, absolutely. And then get rid of that and just push and go all the way. The way that I much prefer processing things is keeping the original source and paralleling underneath it. So I use a lot of parallel stuff. It's why I love I love stuff like this, is because I can use it as a parallel as well. And this whole chain went up online, and it looks like I'm doing so much stuff, but it's because for me, it's very precise. I have to be very, very precise. I have to have a lot of control over it. And just people just dissing me. And people going, well, my little shit amp can do it if I just put and I was like, great. Like, that's cool. Then do that. Like, I'm not telling you that what I'm doing is right. That's just the truth of what I did. I think for me, what's really, really great about all of this is that nothing is right and nothing is wrong.
Absolutely.
And so it's just like, I want to make sure that in my studio, it's not about me having the coolest shit in the world. It's just about the shit that I just look at and go, fucking hell, what the hell's going on? This is amazing. Buying so much stuff from you guys is a big part of it, because you wouldn't buy loads and loads of guitars that are broken.
No.
You buy guitars that have like been looked after and are ready to go. And so it's like, I'm not a tech, I don't have that mindset. That's just not what I do. It's not my expertise. And I respect people whose expertise is massively, because I don't understand it. But like, I would much rather be able to come to you and be like, Tony, this is what I'm after. Are you able to source it? Or something comes on, I'm like, oh my God, that is what I've been looking for. Because I know when I'm getting it from you guys, it's actually just going to like be in its kind of preferred, you know what I mean? Like, you turn it on and you're like, this is actually what it's supposed to sound like.
It's just made me realise something, that you've had some of this stuff for a long time and it actually hasn't come back to us.
No, because it's worse. I mean, I've probably had that for 7 years from you guys. I think I had it teched once. But my favourite thing about these is, and I actually keep all the old tapes, because the weirder the tape goes, the more it does different things. So at the moment it's in a real odd place, that machine, but it's
a good odd place.
Yeah, it's because the tape I think the tape in there is probably like 2 years old.
Our ex-head tech, Dr. Hugh, he used to tour with Massive Attack and Portishead, and he always used to joke about Portishead that he used to have to change the tapes without Jeff finding out in the space echoes.
I'm sure he'd freak out.
Because obviously Hugh's responsibility was that they didn't go down in the middle of a show, whereas Jeff and the guy, they loved the sound of the older tape. I've got my machines in my studio that I use, maybe not every day, but almost daily.
Yeah.
I don't change the tapes very often.
No.
People say, how long do the tapes last? I say, well, I've got a machine that's got a tape in that's been in for 2-3 years.
Exactly.
And I like the sound of it.
Sounds amazing.
When should I change the tape? Either when you no longer like the sound, or when you're doing a project where you need a different flavour.
Exactly that.
Oh, this looks more like my place.
See, look, that's what's funny. Here's the hierarchy. That was the first one I bought.
Yep.
The Clark.
Yeah.
Then there was actually the Universal Audio one, and now I've got the actual product. Yeah, I've got the real McCoys. But yeah, this is one of the OGs.
Yeah, I still love mine. I've
got. See that, me writing on it.
Yeah, well, it's yours, isn't it?
Exactly.
Grampian ribbon.
Oh yeah, love these things. There's this great website, the Soviet.
Oh yes.
The American guys.
Yeah.
Who do all like the Soviet and Japanese and stuff mics. Like this Iowa. It's a DM 55. 65. Oh god, I can't see anymore.
See if I can.
Yeah, but see if you can read it. But that is the greatest acoustic guitar mic I've ever used in my life. Beats a U47.
Really?
Yeah, and I got
need to
these.
take a photo of
I got
that.
these 2 Octavas recently. They're just absolutely phenomenal. Like, just the mics that these guys have found and like cherished and looked after is so special. And this, so beautiful, an old Fostex ribbon.
Oh, wow, Fostex ribbon.
Yeah. And these are printed ribbons, so they're completely different in the compared to like a normal ribbon.
Yeah.
So they have a lot more clarity to them. I mean, at least when
Wow.
so I was putting this up against, say, like a Coles.
Yeah.
And this had so much more top end, but still with the ribbon. Do you know what I mean? It was
Yeah,
like it was
yeah,
opened
yeah,
up, it still had a
yeah.
bit more, it wasn't quite as steep
quite
a roll.
right.
I've got a really nice 47. Let me show you this. Get ready to see the condition of this.
Oh my, what? Wow. Where did you find that?
I got it from a guy whose dad was a record producer, and he'd passed away, and he had a really big mic collection. And he was like begrudgingly selling his father's microphones, but I was just like, this is just outrageous. Wow. I just couldn't believe what I saw. I've got 2 RCA 77s
Oh, nice.
that
Yeah.
are both dented.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of.
Yeah, that's part and
That's the
parcel.
rule,
of
isn't it?
Yeah, this one in particular is fantastic. It's a proper D. That's a DX, and this is a D. People prefer the DX. I prefer the D.
Interesting. Why?
Yeah, I don't know technically why, but like this has a slightly less like focused sound, but I really like what that does. This on vocals sounds absolutely amazing. And I also really like using it like on a drummer over their shoulder, pointing down at the snare. I've always found gives it like a really nice like, there's like a certain like scratch that it has to it that's really, really, really pleasant. Really, really nice.
Let's have a look at the mastering. No.
So yeah, this is
the
all the
mix
mix
channel.
bus. Yeah, so
Yeah.
this is over the mix bus. This is, yeah, an absolute game changer. Having this kind of level of control, it really can make a mix. You know, because you're essentially, you know, using stuff like this
Yeah.
to really focus the center, and then this you can really then scope the width. So it's like you're not losing any strength anywhere. Obviously, this thing is also super powerful. So it's one of the big things I love about when I'm like really getting into a mix is instead of it all just kind of, it's like the center being the focus point, but then the wide's like hugging around your ears. So instead of it just being kind of like a, you know, a triangle that does that, where it goes back, the wider it gets, it's like that kind of is allowed to like scope around you. And so you being able to use this side of it to really control that is a nice touch. This is potent, this thing.
Is it?
It snaps out so hard. Because I mean, essentially, it's just like a 550B, you know, stereo. But then because you've got these parameters here where you can half or quarter the amounts, instead of just all being 2 dB.
Literally.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a great
So instead of
idea.
it being just all 2 dB,
Yeah.
which is obviously one of the great things, but also one of the annoying things about API EQs, you can then make it into 1 dB or half dB. And because it's all nice like that, it's very easily recallable. Like all of this stuff I've got is all
stepped controls.
everything
yes.
step. That's why I got the
yes.
mastering version of this. It's,
Yeah.
you know, I just was like, I can't, going back to the recall stuff that we were talking about and like plugins and that stuff, having a mix bus chain that is all stepped
Yes.
was vital. I love Steve Levine's GML. But it's too dangerous to have on a mix bus because something will change and I can't ever find it again. You know, but it's like, it's that mix bus chain is, for me, has got really, really kind of, it's really powerful.
Do you do much with sort of like sort of panning, spatial placement, or is that very much something you do more with the EQs and the filters and compression?
I normally find that what will happen is, I mean, because a lot of the time I won't change the panning on if a production comes in, I won't change the panning on it. The only thing I will switch around is the drummer perspective. I find it odd when it's audience. No, when it's drummer perspective, I like it to be audience perspective. Which, you know, so then you have to change around the percussion as well. So you have to, there's a flip around that goes on in the rhythmicals. If I then find that fucks with too much other stuff, I'll flip it back around again and let it be. The only thing I will normally do then really is the width of the mix.
Yeah. I was more thinking about the sort of, how wide how do you make things wider?
Because this is in mid-side, you can just bring up the sides.
So
that is already like kind of a widener.
Yes.
Then it also has on it an actual width tool.
Fantastic.
The unit has that on it built in, which is great. So this is kind of like two elements of that. Obviously you can do stuff in the box. I try not to do it in the box too much anymore. I'll then use like reverbs if I want to make it wider, or if I want to make it feel some sort of stereo element to it, I'll do that. That will all be parallel. That will, as in like,
yes.
like a reverb or any processing stuff like the H3000 or the DP4 or whatever. I did go through a period not very long ago where I would send a lot of it out to the, I know this looks like absolute chaos, but it does make sense.
It looks like my chaos.
It
actually looks more organised.
This is the focus point. This I will use quite a lot. I also use the whammy quite a lot. The GT5 is, in my opinion, a future classic.
Right.
It's the most amazing guitar effects unit. It's so bombastic. It's completely too far.
What sort of era is that? Is that like
so this is
late
the last.
90s or
This is the
2000s?
last Japanese made.
Right.
Before everything went.
Yeah.
Where it would have been to America. To America first, I guess. I'm not really sure where all their stuff is made now, but
China.
Yeah. So whenever the last Japanese period was, this was the last effects unit that came from that. But you can get that for like 120 quid.
Use the whammy on vocals.
Love the whammy on vocals. Yeah,
interesting.
Love the whammy.
Do you know,
on vocals.
I can't quite believe it, but I still don't have a whammy pedal.
For some drum recording, it's actually really, especially if you're doing like break replacement. If you've got like a break and you want to do a bit of a resample, bring a whammy and a hawk. And what you do is you feed all the drums through the whammy and the hawk. You can pitch the drums in real time. So you're basically, you don't listen to any of the originals, just the processed, and you can pitch the drums in real time. It fucks the transient up, so you get that break sound straight away, because it's not clean transient. It's all like weird off processing from that immediate break sound. Wow. It's so good for that.
It's now on my list.
It's
Thank you.
Fantastic. I love it so much.
Going slightly off topic, have you seen the new delay that Chase Splitter brought out?
No, is it
the big
amazing?
time? It's basically the digital delay version.
Oh wow,
of that.
okay.
They released it on my birthday, which I felt was entirely appropriate.
Yeah, that's a troll. They're trolling you.
Yeah, and they're at Super Booth with it, and it is absolutely unmissable.
You think you don't need one. 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 And obviously, you go into if you go into a big studio, there's always one that's just there, and they normally look a bit like battered and bruised and a bit sad, and they're just in the middle of the console and no one really knows what they're doing, and they don't really get used very often. And the only thing you'd ever probably do is just put it on large hall, which is number one. And now that I've got it here and I've been able to sit with it and like properly think about what's going on with it, it's just so powerful. And the main thing is it just sits in a mix, so you can just put it on something and it just sits straight down. It's pretty terrifying actually how good it is. A lot of like records I really, really love, I think they're just absolutely coated in that.
Yeah.
Completely coated. Like, I mean, I would love to sit down with like Spike and talk to him about some of his mixing, because I'm like, they just have to, it has to be all that. It's mad. It's like, now that I know what that, and I can sit with it and like be like, okay, I'm gonna send something to it, let's see what it does. I'm like, did Spike just sit with that for it? I don't know, it's like, he does, like, there's a certain, obviously he's the greatest of all time, but there's certain mixes of his where I'm like, the only way he could have done these, I think, is with that.
Is it like a digital patch bay?
No, it's a fully, or is it chaotic analog patch bay? Because I designed all this room myself, like putting in all the cabling, and it was stressful.
It's brutal, isn't it?
Yeah, it took me like 3 months off and on to properly design the patch bay in here. When I was putting this room together, it wasn't about, I'd really like a cool like production room. I was like, this has to set up against if I go and mix anywhere in the world. Like this has to be as good.
Yeah.
And there was a period of time where I was thinking, should I get a console? It's like, it's a lot of money. What kind of console? Like, I've been brought up on a VR. So I was like, do I get a fucking VR? Is the room big enough for VR? Am I gonna have to buy a VR, cut down a VR, get a modded VR? I was like, this is chaos. And then I was like, how many aircon units do I need for a VR? Like, and then all the things, then do I get, if I cut down a VR, do I keep all those as spares? Do I have to hire a tech? and you start going round and round and round, and then you start thinking, oh God, can I mix anything else? All those things, so tricky. And then when I tried the Genesis, it's an amazing console.
So the Genesis is digitally controlled analog.
Exactly. Yeah. But it's great because it's got the 88R mix bus on it. So it's like, and I was used to the VR mix bus, which I loved, but would like go brown very quickly. The 88R is obviously just way bigger, but still has it's the same kind of DNA. So just knowing that was the mix bus side of it, but then the way that the console works, talking about plugins and talking about recall ability and all that stuff, it's an automatic recall on the console. It's really easy to expand it if I wanted to. It's just everything about the console leads towards the modern way of mixing records. I've worked at a couple of studios in different countries that have these, brought the recall of the mix back home with me. But the recall of the mix isn't in a separate file, it's linked to the Pro Tools session. So Pro Tools has a plugin that these guys developed which controls the board. So whenever you do any automation on here, it saves as automation in Pro Tools. So as soon as I could be in a different studio, same board, come back, and it just loads up the mix on here, and you A/B it and it's perfect. Because it's just a replication. What's great about it is it's like you can start a record, and what I often will try and do is be like, can you let me mix kind of 1 or 2 or 3 just by myself to get my head into it.
Yeah.
But instead of like how I used to be on a VR, where I'd be like, well, I've mixed 1, and now I've got to spend 2 hours fucking printing stems, or someone else got to do it. And then you've got to go into the next. But then to go back to the first one, how am I going to go back to the first one? Like I could do it, but then it's like, but I'm losing what was already on. Now I can just literally be going round and around and around and around. So even when we get like later on into the album, you can just keep going back.
It's so important, isn't it, if you're doing an album, to keep that sort of, as you go through the process, things will change, and you'll end up with a sound that's, you're 3, 4, 5 tracks in, and you've gone somewhere that you've got to go back. And if you've got total recall, and it is the argument why so many people, I only mix in the box.
And I get that. And and that's the thing, for people mixing the box, they're like, well, yeah, of course you can just load up another Pro Tools session or a Logic session or whatever. And I understand that, but this is a fully analog mix, so it's like been really, really, life changing for me.
I was going to say, what's your favourite mix that you've done?
I think they're all great.
Well, yeah, of course. That's probably a difficult one to. So let's try something. I mean, obviously, the one that was most recent that really, just like I was like, oh my. I mean, Tom Waits and Massive Attack.
Yeah.
I mean, Tom Waits or Massive Attack,
It's crazy.
But Tom Waits and Massive Attack.
I mean,
how incredible.
I mean, it was like obviously a mad collaboration to even kind of like wind your head around.
And were you already working with Massive at that point? Was this the first?
This was the first.
And did they tell you immediately it was going to be Tom Waits? Or was it just like
no?
So firstly, it was like Massive, which is massive,
for
all of us.
Yeah, and it was just like I basically did like just a trial mix of it. This is a while back, like a while ago, a few years ago. And I think it's one of those things. It's for a band like that, I think it's very, very easy to I guess question not them, but like any artist of like, why don't they put out more music? They're so good. And I think with those guys, it's like they're looking for a very specific quality, and it's not just in the song. It's in the audio, in the mix, in everything about it. But it's also a quality within like the world that it's going out into.
Yeah.
They don't just put out songs. No. There's no need for them to do that.
No.
They are like true artists in that sense. And so I think I did the first mix a while ago, and it kind of just sat around. Like it wasn't that it was finished, but it wasn't like unfinished. It just needed maybe some tweaks, just a little bit of love. But it kind of just like sat around, and then obviously as the world has become what the world has become, this whole like concept of boots on the ground was fairly.
Its time had come.
Yeah. It's time
Sadly,
and unfortunately, it's time was just consistently coming. It's
Yeah.
still coming now.
Yeah.
So I think, but it basically got to this point where they just needed to finish the song. So we you know, and at that point, I'd done this initial mix, and then we did some brass on it and that kind of stuff. And it's a very interesting thing. You know, if you look at all of their records, something like Mezzanine or Heligoland or whatever, it's the mixes have such a defined quality. And what was interesting is like where we'd got the mix to felt really good, but there was something that wasn't quite there. And it wasn't about like, turn this up a little bit and oh my God, it's just like there's an audio quality. And I think that was, you know, that was like a really amazing thing for me to experience. I've experienced it a lot of times on a lot of albums, you know, and you're always looking for this last little ounce of, you know, gold that you can just like kind of see and find. But with them, it was like a very, very distinct thing that we were looking for. And it was like, where essentially the song starts and you don't at any moment question anything that is going on, no matter what it is. And with Tom Waits' voice, it's obviously so iconic.
Yeah.
It's like brazenly iconic and terrifying. And in that song in particular, he is terrifying. But it's because what he's talking about is fucking terrifying and should not really be experienced. And so it was one of those where it was like the song had to feel like claustrophobic, and you're like, okay, how do you make it feel claustrophobic? And it was a really, really interesting thing to go through, because it really was a combination of like all the things we're talking about. It's of the gear, it's of plugins, it's of an analog board, it's of some things being kept off the board, it's of tape, it's of not tape. It's like, because for a long time I was like, the thing that will sort this is we'll just put it to 1/4 inch and it will sound fucking amazing. And it completely destroyed the mix. It sounded awful. It needed this, like, it still needed this, obviously analog, but like it didn't need to be tapey.
No.
It wasn't the right thing for it. Like his vocal had gone to tape, and that really helped what he was, you know, like in terms of his vocal just aside, and it set him out from the song quite nicely. But then I like reduced the compression on his vocal quite a lot. You know, so he actually had to be really dynamic in a way that I would, you know, and so it's like all these things. And so it got to the plate, but then it was mad. Like we got the mastering done by Joe Laporta over at Sterling, and I mean, he's a fucking genius. I have no idea what he does. I never want to know what he does. He's just, you know what I mean? He's one of those, it's like trusted ears on a beyond level. And he sent it back and it sounded great, but it was like, you've actually made this like sound really great.
Too great.
And it actually needs to be claustrophobic.
Yeah.
So I need you to add in claustrophobia. And I have no idea what he did. But like he sent over 2 versions of the final master. And I remember I played the first one, I was like, yeah, it's like, and obviously every time you listen to this, you're like, it's Tom Waits and Massive Attack. It feels fucking great to listen to. Like obviously not great, but you know what I mean? It's like, it's an experience. And I listened to the first one, I was like, oh, I just know there's like something not quite aligned in this. And he'd sent over a brighter version, or maybe a less, or whatever it was. And I remember putting it on as soon as I pressed play, and like Tom's vocal wasn't even in at that point, just the beat starts.
You knew.
And I was just like, oh my fucking God. And you know, 5.5 minutes later, I was just sat there just like, there is no question. And it's such a, I think that's the thing with all of these things, is like, that is the search. That's always that search.
Yeah.
And it's really nice to have like got to a stage now where I've built the room that I can do it all in, rather than it being like, oh, I need to go to another studio to be able to do this. Obviously, there's still going to be certain times where people will just like, yeah, but we just need this, like we want that board, or you know, and that's fine. I don't mind about that. But it's like, on a day to day, like I know that I can come in here and like this studio is as good, if not better, than like most professional studios, which is pretty cool.
That's a nice place to be.
And you have absolutely been a central part in allowing me to to collect all those things. So it's, you know, it's in a good space.
Can I ask you, and I thought about this on the way down, but it's a fair question, as someone who produces and mixes my own music, mostly for my own pleasure, are there any things any tips or hints you've got for someone who is working at home on their laptop or whatever, small studio, making their own tracks, doing their own mixes. What's a Ben Baptie bit of advice for the person who's making their own music? Not necessarily an aspiring mix engineer, just someone who wants to make better sounds.
Comparison is not a good thing to do.
No.
Don't ever compare yourself against someone else. For me, like, I never use reference tracks because otherwise I'm just going to try and make the song sound like that reference track, and there's no way in hell I'm ever going to be able to do that. As much as I think it's really great nowadays having, like all these different places where you can see how people mix, it's like breakdowns of everything. Whilst they, yes, are very useful, and I still will watch them. I think you have to really take them with a pinch of salt, because if you take that as the law, you will be listening to something and going, yeah, but I should be doing this thing.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, you shouldn't. Don't do that.
I watched, you watch Chad Blake talk about mixing. It's like, oh, he does that and that. But yeah, because he's Chad Blake. I'm not Chad Blake.
Yeah.
I might be able to take a tiny thing that he does.
If I ever could use SoundZamp in that way, it would be so, how he makes things, I don't know, I don't understand.
Incredible.
I've watched him do it. And I still don't understand. Chad being a perfect example is just do what you want to do.
Yeah.
For me, I have like a very, very set taste of music, and like I'm like protective of it. I will like those records I will take with me, and I will defend until my last breath. But they're not actually that many records that I love. I really love music, and I love what it is, and I love all the things about it. But the records that are like my influence, there's very few of them, and they're not linked in any way. They just are records that just sing to me in a certain way. And so the way that I mix is that I'm always using those reference points in the way that I mix. I'm not looking to fit within a current way or a current thing. I'm just like, this sounds good to me. Yeah. And so actually, even me joking like, all my mixes are good, I can actually listen to my mixes, not because I think they're good, but because if I didn't think they were good enough, why the fuck would I send them out?
Exactly. Yeah.
Like, I think, this is like, I'm dealing with someone's art. Like, how fucking dare I send something out if I don't think it's very good?
Yeah.
Leave it the fuck alone.
And if it doesn't speak to you, either you've really not got any business mixing the music, or you've not got there.
Exactly.
You're saying about the Massive Attack. You knew as soon as you pressed play, it's like, oh yeah, this is here.
Yeah.
This is what we wanted.
Exactly.
And it hits. It's really interesting because I spent 20, 30 years. Yeah. Oh, you must reference other mixers, and of course you reference other mixers. And what do you think? Well, when I reference Spike Stent mixing Mezzanine, my stuff sounds shit. But actually, once I stop doing that and actually go, well, okay, it may not fit it, but actually I like it, and it kind of does something for me. Exactly that. And that's, so basically, be yourself.
You have to truly, truly believe in what you're doing.
Yeah.
And at the beginning, you are not going to be very good at it.
No.
And that's the whole point.
Yeah.
Like, there's mixes I listened to from years ago, before I even was mixing for anyone else, like just me at like uni or whatever. And they're awful. There's no way anyone would ever be like, oh, he could be a mix engineer, because they're shit. Yeah. But the point is I didn't care because I believed in what I was doing. And so I think, like with any of this stuff, it's if you are not fully like committing yourself, you're never going to be able to. It will always be a disservice. This is art. This isn't. This is. It's like you can't show up and not fully commit to art. That is so rude. You don't deserve to be around it. And like, I think that for me has always just meant that I drive on hard. Like, I will always push, because art is like the be all end all for me. It's it.
Yeah. It's I should imagine you almost get to the end of a session, or the end of a mix. Yeah. You're just like, there's nothing left. No. Like a guy coming off stage, got nothing left to give.
It's exhausting. Yeah, it's exhausting. And like, it's overwhelming at a lot of the time, and it's like this is always playing in my head, and like, not the song, but like, as in just like, I'm very, very, very fortunate to do this.
We've just seen an example of that, because Charlie needed to change the card, And you literally, when you'd got a minute, 2 minutes, you were into that mix, because obviously something you'd be like, hang on a sec, if I just did that,
that's exactly what happens.
you're never off.
No. I feel like, I guess that's, so one piece of advice is definitely to like be yourself. Like fundamentally, don't be afraid of yourself. Because as soon as you're doing something because someone else said you should do it, it gets a little bit weird, because then if people don't like it, they don't like it from a place of you not even being honest.
Yeah.
I mean, you can use that as like, across life. You know, if you're not being a true version of yourself, then you need to think about things. But it's like, that would be the one thing for me. And the second thing is just like, you have to like sacrifice for this. It isn't a normal 9 to 5. It's not like a normal like, oh, I can just like show up and like we can mix a song. And for some people it is, and it's not that I'm not saying everyone has to go mad doing this. That's not what I'm saying. But like, for me, my process was like, I have to like envelop myself in this. I have to like go, and it's just obviously I can mix quicker now because I've done it for 15 years or whatever it is.
Yeah.
But it's like, I saw like one of the greats, Elmhirst, doing it for a long time, and he would just like go in and like disappear into a mix, and it's like you could see that he was still physically there, but like he would be gone. And that's fucking inspiring. That's like an amazing thing to watch as like a young 20-year-old or whatever.
You do it because you love it, and if you're not completely absorbed by it, then like you say, you don't really. Why are you doing this? I guess there are lots of people who start out down the road and I'll do music tech. I like to do music. And you know who the ones are that are going to make it, or that are going to are going to do it for the rest of their lives because they can't do anything else. That's I always say. People say, what else? Well, I don't know what else. I don't think there's anything else I could do.
Yeah. There was no plan B for me on this.
No, I mean, I never set out to be a vintage gear seller. It all comes from passion for sound and music, and I couldn't do anything else.
Yeah.
If it's not music related, I couldn't do anything else.
Yeah. And that's it.
So
because like being a mix engineer requires, depending on how you go into it, it requires a certain set of like emotional talk. It's like it's a hard job in terms of essentially, every day you're just being told what you've done wrong.
Yeah,
that's it. Thanks to the mix, and then you just a list of everything you've done wrong.
We love the mix. Could you just change the vocal, turn the drum down,
and that's just what it is. That's just how it goes, and that's how it is.
So you've got to be absolutely committed and give 120% of yourself to the art, and then be prepared for someone to kick you in the teeth and say
exactly that.
Yeah. What you've done's not good enough, or it's not what we want.
And that on a fundamental level, if you are then able to separate yourself away from it.
Yeah.
Because the thing is, it's not a personal attack at me.
No.
It's about art.
Yeah.
Why I've gone in so hard, and then why the notes and the ideas, and it's not like them going, you're a bad person.
No.
It's them going, this is a piece of art, it's abstract. So we are looking for an abstract resolution here. And so it's just like, you just have to be like, But the thing is you're still in control of that. So you then carry that forward. It's always looking for like point C, their point A, your point B. The C is, that's the dream. I think I spent too much time in studios.
I think we all have.
But yeah, it's good, man.
Yours is from the era when we had red LEDs. That was a very brief.
Really?
Yeah. Oh, is yours? Yeah, yours is one of the ones where they didn't do the boards properly. So we had the recessed switches.
Fine, don't worry.
Yeah. Mine's the same.
I mean, it's just, there you go. That's the drum sound done. So much more character. Just so much more interest. Because the thing is, it's great because you just got that point, where we're just getting that saturation bite. Sometimes I will actually push the drums and the bass against each other. And really tailor the sound into itself. Oh, do you know, I should be recording this, shouldn't I? I have to take all the plugins off. And then you're just allowing yourself to have a lot more character within everything. And then you can really just, there's so much more space you can have. It's fucking great. it's just so easy. But almost going from like this kind of character, obviously I know the level's jumping, but we're looking at like a tipping point of the character. That's all you want, just a little bit.
Yeah.
You want to see the groove.
Yes.
It just makes it so easy. I mean, this definitely is something that becomes the front runner of the sound. You know, you would replace the original with that. You get the right biting point. But then what I've always loved doing, which is kind of, you know, more of like an Andy Wallace concept of how he used to do like reverbs and stuff, is then you use the original to do the spring. And you use the original if you want to use any reverbs or any kind of, so that is the drive, and then everything else underneath it is clean. So you don't have loads and loads of distortion.
Yeah.
Because then no matter what you're doing, the spring's sitting back.
So that's clean going into the spring, and then
clean also going into this.
and then using that to drive the main sound.
Because then you can really.
Oh yes.
Which is pretty good. It's really fun.
Isn't it?
It's like just the greatest box. Yeah, so
fantastic.
That's all you need to do.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course.
It's been so much fun, and yeah, it's so nice to see you having fun with the gear, and making such amazing use of it as well. And thanks for making it impossible for me to get Hawks anymore.
It's not a problem. If there's any more that come up, please let me know, because I need one. But no, thanks for coming down, Tony. I appreciate it.
It's been great.
Awesome. Thanks, mate.
Thanks, Ben.
Take it easy.